Life can feel like a busy roller coaster from appointments, deadlines, combating anxious thoughts, and to dos. It can be very overwhelming. If we keep at this pace, we only find ourselves feeling burnt out and stuck. And oftentimes, we go through life thinking that we're rested because we feel like we've gotten enough sleep. But in reality, we're missing out on other types of rest and that we desperately need, and we don't even realize that. And because of this, it results in a culture of feeling like a high achiever, high producing, and chronically tired and chronically burned out. So if that is you, I've been there myself. We're suffering from a rest deficit because we don't understand the true power of rest. I read this book by Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith. She's a physician and she created this book called The Sacred Rest. And she talks about how as humans, we actually need 7 types of rest. And these are physical, mental, social, creative, emotional, spiritual, and sensory rest. I want to talk about the 7 types of rest that we may not be getting and see which ones you can identify you might be neglecting and not even knowing. I strongly encourage you to take the rest quiz. I have it linked in my description to kind of get you a baseline of what rest area you're finding a deficit in before this video, so that you can actually take what you need and can skip around if you have a specific type of rest that the quiz kind of indicates that you have a deficit in. So I left it down below in the description. So let's get started with the first type of rest that she mentions in her book, and that is physical rest. This is the type of rest that we're super familiar with. It involves taking a break from physical activity and allowing your body to rest and recover. You probably know when you're physically exhausted, you're just tired, you're sleepy, you're drowsy, you probably struggle keeping your eyes open, and even walking to bed feels like moving through quicksand. It feels like you're dragging. But there are actually 2 types of physical rest. There's a passive and an active. So passive rest means sleeping, napping, you're not really doing much, right? You're actually just resting. There isn't you're not physically moving. And then there's the active rest, which is more restorative, like yoga, stretching, massage therapy. And this helps improve our body's circulation, our flexibility. And again, it's also restorative. So it's a type of rest. The most common rest we know about is sleep. And so we definitely need to consider taking at least going to bed 30 minutes earlier or sitting out on that HIIT cardio class. Cardiovascular is very high energy and it is not physically restful. It actually drains you. So any type of HIIT cardio, something like that, if you find you're feeling fatigued, that may mean where you need to lean into more restorative activities versus this high energy sweating cardio, high energy activity. It's important that we catch up on our physical rest. Also, this also means taking just deep breaths during the workday and squeezing in some restorative yoga to give your body some stretch and more energy and less yawning. Dr. Dalton Smith advises incorporating body fluidity into your day with hourly small movements. This just means kind of mobility type work. One of the things that I recommend is to kind of set a phone reminder to roll your neck, to unclench your jaw, to unclench your hands, to stand up and rock on your heels. It's better to do these things throughout the day so that you know that you're finding a way to actually give yourself some time to physically rest. That is an active choice. Even better is to just sit still for 5 minutes while laying down. There's some videos on YouTube called deep rest, and they kind of put you in that state that you would if you were sleeping, but you're actually awake. And they actually work when it comes to just feeling that reset that you need throughout the day. I don't know about you, but I hit the afternoon slump and I'm just oh my gosh, I need a nap. And this could be very helpful to do. Try to do this for 5 minutes. The hardest part is just getting up after 5 minutes, I think, but it is something that can help if you're finding yourself having a physical rest deficit. The next type of rest that she talks about is mental rest. Mental rest is about giving your brain a break from constant stimulation and allowing it to recharge. If you ever felt like your brain is turning to mush, your brain fog, like don't remember what happened that day, then you know what it's like to need mental rest. You may realize like, I don't know if this has happened to you, but you may realize that like if you're reading a book, you literally have been on the same page for 10 minutes, or you're sending an email and you're like, wait, I don't even know what I just wrote down. Some other things where you know you need mental rest is when you start noticing more negative self-talk, where you're finding yourself talking more negatively towards yourself, towards others, being more judgmental. This might be where you may need a break. And the mental time you need could look like turning off your screens, taking a moment to ground yourself. This could be trying to add meditation to your day, or simply repeating a calming mantra. There is this book called Self-Compassion by Kristen Neff, and in her website she has a lot of self-compassion meditation, so I'm going to link them down below, but they have been so helpful when I've just needed a reset, especially if I've had like a negative self-talk day. This usually happens around my period, so I like to just kind of check in with myself and do those, and they only take like 5 to 10 minutes, but they've been so helpful. So having like a guided meditation can be helpful to kind of reset that mental rest. But the biggest thing is also just like shutting down the devices, allowing yourself that time to really decompress. The third type of rest that she mentions is social rest, and social rest is about taking a break from social interactions and allowing yourself some alone time. But also she mentions that it's not only like taking a break from socializing, but it is also spending time with people who you actually can be your most authentic self, and people who are supportive of you. So there's a difference, and you'll know a difference when you go to a party and you don't know anybody and you're just like socializing and maybe making small talk, versus having a coffee with that one-on-one friend who you can be your most authentic self with. That's also social rest. You can still be social and get social rest, but it's about being able not to like have a face on, have this version of you that you're trying to pretend you are, especially when we're in like new social interaction or social situations. We tend to put a mask on. Maybe we're not feeling well, and so we tend to give more than what we actually have, and that is so important, like that we spend time with people who we can be our most authentic self with. And it is important to differentiate between these relationships, the ones that exhaust us and the ones that revive us, right? So to experience more social rest, surround yourself with positive and supportive people. Even if you need to cure virtually, a lot of the friends that I feel to make the most connected with are far away, and so I do tend to prioritize doing a FaceTime call or virtual call so that I could get connected with them, because I know that I could be myself. Like I don't have to like ask about things that I don't care about. Like I could actually just really genuinely ask the question. If you ever found yourself saying like, how are you feeling, and you're just like, oh okay, and you can't be your most authentic self, like you can't really share how you are, then might be a indicator that you need social rest. I'm an overachiever and I'm competitive and I like moving towards my goals, and sometimes it becomes easily to be just like a solo warrior in all of this. It can become so easy just to be on my own and think that I can do things all on my own. But we need people. We need people, and we also, I think something too, we also need to find people who are part of your tribe, finding people who I don't have to compete with, like we are all good at what we do and we have our own desires and dreams, and we don't have to be in competition with one another. So try catching up with an old friend, or perhaps taking some time to get on FaceTime with a friend instead of isolating yourself. The next type of rest is called creative rest. Creative rest is about engaging in activities that we find can nourish our soul. This means like painting, writing, gardening, honestly, anything that you could be creative with. Chances are that you're constantly flexing your creative muscle. You might not think you are, but every time that you're at work, you're brainstorming or putting together plans for like a date night or for getting friends together, like that is you using your creative energy, and you're tapping into creative thinking and putting yourself in need of creative rest. So give yourself a break by going for a walk or reading fiction. That could also be very helpful. Surrounding yourself with inspiration can help you. Surrounding yourself with inspiration can replenish your energy. So like scrolling on Pinterest has been super helpful for me when I'm like in a creative rut and I just need inspiration. Just walking around just really helps to just like reset me. Even going to a coffee shop and like where other people are working, and I literally just will just sit there, have a coffee, and just look around and people watch. I found that has given me inspiration and creative rest instead of like, and I will intentionally not take my laptop so that I can get some creative rest. So I'm just like soaking in my surroundings, the people around me, and grounding myself. So I think that's really important, and it's okay to take breaks if you're a content creator, entrepreneur, or your work is something in the creative space. Like it's okay to take, breaks on creating content, and also thinking about like how much you're consuming too. Are you consuming a lot? Because that could also drain your creative energy. The other type of rest is called emotional rest. Emotional rest is about taking care of your emotional well-being and giving yourself permission to relax, let go of stress and worries. This would mean talking to a friend as well, journaling, practicing self-care, talking to your therapist. We often keep a lot of things to ourselves because we don't want to burden other people. But by doing this to ourselves, we keep on that emotional load instead of releasing. Emotional rest requires for you to be vulnerable, and which I think that's the hardest part for a lot of people. An emotional rested person would be someone that would answer the question. If I were to ask you, how are you today? You would actually answer it truthfully. You would actually answer me like, I'm not okay, or this is what I'm going through, and share the hard things. So ask yourself, are you someone that does that? Now, also know when you're finding yourself like often unloading a lot on your friends, because often that too can also continue to trigger distress versus actually, when we vent, it's not always going to give us that reset. If anything, it's going to exacerbate some of the emotions. So think about the thing that you continue to overshare, continue to bring up, right? Because that is important. There might be like something that we're not actually resolving, or actually we're saying the story, but we're not saying the emotional side of things, And so finding someone who can listen, who can help you kind of process those things can be helpful. But sometimes we do need professional help when it comes to that, especially because when I grew up, I didn't know how to like process emotions or recognize my emotions. Therapy was something that was helpful for me. The next type of rest is spiritual rest, and spiritual rest is about taking time to connect with something bigger, greater than yourself, and nourish your soul. This might mean attending a religious service. This might mean practicing meditation. This might mean spending time in nature. It doesn't necessarily mean religion, spirituality. It can mean so many things for different people. It really just depends on your belief system and what feels good for you. This could mean practicing your religion if that's your jam, but it could also mean seeking out a sense of purpose, something to ground you and provide something to ground you. And to kind of compare the two, like something that could be just as beneficial is volunteering, like being able to volunteer for an organization, or advocate or be an activist for something that can be something where you are connecting to a bigger purpose, something bigger than yourself. By you volunteering and connecting with those people, like that is you getting a spiritual rest. At the core, spiritual rest is that feeling that we have of needing to be really seen, of feeling like we need to belong and that we're accepted and like life has meaning. So this might come from volunteer work or other activities. The last type of rest that she mentions, and I think that, I think for me, this was one of the ones that when I took the quiz was the highest like deficit that I had, and that was sensory rest. And sensory rest is about getting a break from constant stimulation. So might mean turning off your TV, putting away your phone, or taking a break from loud music. Sometimes I'll go on walks and I'll do my podcast and also listen to music. And I think sometimes I just need to just walk instead of listening to something or find something. Even when I'm painting, sometimes like I'll listen to a podcast, like I need some noise. And practicing being okay with silence is very important. Knowing your surroundings. Are you surrounded by bright lights, computer screens, background noise, multiple conversations? wherever, whether you're in Zoom or your office, like what are some things that are causing you to feel overwhelmed? Sensory exhaustion is one of the most prevalent drainers, thanks to the fact that we are always on our screens. It can cause a lot of eye strain, neck tension. So catch up on your sensory rest by putting away the technology and stepping outside for fresh air if you're able to do so. Check in with yourself before reaching the remote or reaching over your phone on nights off. Like, it's okay to grab a book and, instead of grabbing that like device to continue scrolling. Comment down below what you feel your rest deficit is and which step you want to make to improve. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, make sure that you hit the thumbs up button and consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.